Okay, so I've been contemplating making this for a while, but here it goes. I think Jay Prichett is a terrible father. Which sounds ridiculous because he's also one of the most beloved characters on the show. He's the grumpy grandpa with the secret soft side. The guy who loves Gloria, adores Joe, eventually embraces Cameron, and spends the later seasons trying to become a better man. But the Jay we meet isn't the same Jay who raised Claire and Mitchell. And if you pay attention, it becomes pretty clear that a lot of the issues both of them struggle with as adults came from Jay. So, while the show gives him a genuinely great redemption arc, I don't think that redemption should make us forget what needed redeeming in the first place. Because when most people think about Jay Prichett, they're probably not thinking about the father he was. They're thinking about the man he became. The guy who slowly learns to accept Cameron. The guy who tears up talking about his family. The guy who spends half the series pretending he doesn't care, and the other half proving that he does. And honestly, that's fair. A huge part of Moern Family is watching Jay become a better version of himself. The problem is that Claire and Mitchell didn't grow up with the version of Jay that spent 11 seasons learning those lessons. They grew up with the version that still thought being a good father was mostly about doing your job, providing for your family, keeping food on the table, and making sure your kids had opportunities. And to be clear, Jay did all of those things. In a lot of ways, he was successful precisely because he threw himself into that role. He built a business from nothing, gave his family a comfortable life, worked hard enough that neither Claire nor Mitchell would ever have to struggle the way he did. But somewhere along the way, he started treating emotional support as optional. Love was there, it just wasn't always visible. And for kids, that distinction matters more than parents sometimes realize. You can see the consequences all over Moern Family if you know where to look. But Mitchell's story is probably the clearest example of all. Mitchell did not come out to his dad once. He had to do it 3 separate times before Jay actually heard him. 3 times. Picture being that scared, working up the courage, saying the hardest thing in your life out loud, and watching it just bounce off the one person whose reaction matters most. Then having to do it all over again. And once Jay finally did acknowledge it, he did not lean in. He pulled back. During Mitchell's law school years, Jay stopped checking in the way he used to. He just handed those conversations off to Dee Dee instead. So right when Mitchell needed his dad most, his dad quietly stepped out of the picture. The little moments stung just as much as the big ones. Jay introducing Cam to people as just a friend of Mitchell's, like he could not say the real word out loud. Squirming anytime the two of them showed any affection in public. And years later, in season 6, Jay flat out called Mitchell and Cam's wedding plans weird right to their faces. Mitchell uninvited him on the spot, and you could see exactly how deep that one landed. Even as a grown man, Mitchell was still chasing his father's approval, still craving a yes from a man who struggled to give it. The show plays it for laughs sometimes, but underneath it is a real and lasting wound. And he was not even the only kid Jay left a mark on. But Claire did not escape it either. She just hid it better. She was the daddy's girl, the one who shared Jay's competitive streak and his drive, the one who seemed close to him. But scratch that surface and it gets complicated fast. Jay pushed Claire into sports, into ambition, into winning. And on paper, that sounds like a dad investing in his kid. But it crossed a line a lot. It turned into criticism, into perfectionism, into a standard she could never quite reach. Even in the later seasons, grown-up Claire still says her dad can be rude to her, dismissive, condescending. That is not ancient history talking. That is the adult daughter describing how he still makes her feel. Watch how it played out once she took over the family business. Jay could not let go. He actually spied on her decisions through her own assistant because he did not trust her to run the thing he handed her. That is not a man who believes in his daughter. That is a man who cannot stop grading her. And here is the real cost. Jay built a daughter who works herself sick. There is a moment where Claire pushes so hard before a big meeting that she literally makes herself ill, then ends up apologizing for it at dinner. That drive everyone admires, it came with a price tag, and Claire is the one who keeps paying it. But to understand why Jay was like this at all, you have to go back one more generation. But to understand Jay, you have to meet the man who broke him first. Jay's own father was an even tougher, even colder World War II veteran. a man built entirely out of hard edges. Jay grew up under constant pressure to impress him and never quite managing it. And he soaked up the worst lesson a kid can learn from a father like that. That showing feelings makes you weak. That being soft is something to be ashamed of. The show gives us one moment that explains the whole man. Jay breaks down remembering that he did not cry at his own father's funeral. And what haunts him is not the grief. It is the fear that everyone there, maybe even his dad, thought he did not love him. That is the engine running underneath all of Jay's distance. He literally did not have the tools because nobody ever gave them to him. It goes even deeper than that. Jay's father was so closed off that the only goodnight kiss Jay ever got was an accident. On a night his dad mistook him for his sister. Sit with that. A goodnight kiss by mistake. That is the emotional inheritance Jay was handed. So when Jay went cold on Claire and Mitchell, he was not being cruel on purpose. He was just running the only program he was ever taught. But knowing where it came from does not erase what it did, and the pattern showed up again and again. But the pattern was even uglier up close than from a distance. It is one thing to talk about distance in big general terms. It is another to watch the specific moments stack up. Pulling back from Mitchell after he came out instead of pulling him closer. That is the clearest one. A son makes himself that vulnerable, and the father's instinct is to go quiet. Then there is the steady drip of criticism, the quick judgments, the bonding attempts that somehow turned into put-downs. Claire saying straight out that she still finds her own father condescending, years and years later. And underneath all of it is the thing that was missing. Jay almost never said "I love you." He rarely offered physical comfort, the exact thing Mitchell needed most after coming out. The competition he built with Claire bonded them in some ways, sure. But it also taught her that affection came second and winning came first. That approval was a prize, not a given. Here is the important part though. None of this was evil. Jay was not trying to wound his kids. In his head, he was toughening them up for a hard world. The same way he believed he had been toughened up. He thought that was the job. But good intentions do not undo the damage. Both kids walked into adulthood quietly wondering if they were ever truly worthy of love that did not have to be earned. And yet, somehow, this is not where Jay's story ends. But here's the twist nobody expects from a man like that. Because Jay does something his own father never did. He changes. Meeting Gloria cracks him open. She is loud, warm, and emotional in every way Jay never learned to be, and she drags him out of his shell whether he likes it or not. Then there is Manny, and later baby Joe, getting a version of Jay that Claire and Mitchell never got. A present one, an affectionate one, a dad who actually shows up. And the growth is real, not just talk. Jay hands the family business to Claire, which for a control freak like him is a huge act of trust. He steps up for Mitchell and Cam's wedding, offers his country club, and walks his son down the aisle. He starts calling Cameron his son. With Joe, he actively worries about repeating his old mistakes and fights to do better this time. The biggest moment comes when Jay finally opens up about his own father and his own regrets. He admits he has a chance to make Joe different than those two, meaning Claire and Mitchell, and he apologizes to his grown kids for not being more loving when they were small. That apology does not erase the years of distance, but it proves something. People can change far more than 15% when they actually try. And that change is exactly why we forget who Jay used to be. But the damage did not just disappear because he got soft. Is the catch with all that growth. It heals the future. It does not undo the past. Mitchell still carries the need for approval. That hunger for his father's yes did not vanish the day Jay walked him down the aisle. Claire still carries the drive that tips into overwork, the self-doubt that hides under all that ambition. You can trace both of those straight back to a father who was right there in the house but locked away on the inside. The hugs came eventually. The scars came first, and scars do not leave just because things get better later. And that is the whole reason this hits the way it does. The softer, grumpier, lovable Jay of the later seasons is so charming that we let him rewrite our memory of who he was. We remember the grandpa and quietly forget the father. But the show itself spends real time digging into what his early coldness cost his kids. It does not pretend the warm ending cancels the hard beginning. So yes, Jay Prichett gets one of the best redemption arcs on the whole show. A man shaped by a brutal idea of what a man should be, slowly learning to show up differently for the people he loves. That story is genuinely beautiful, but a redemption arc only exists because there was something to be redeemed from. And the Jay who needed redeeming was a far worse father than the cuddly grandpa in your memory ever let on.